Hi everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and today I wanted to talk about the importance of playing games for a game designer. And that sounds kind of like a duh thing, but let me unpack it a little bit. So, when you're a game designer, it's really easy to fall into the trap of constantly designing or using every spare moment you have on design. And I say trap because while it's very important to spend time on design, and I suggest you try to spend time every day on design, occasionally you need to blow off steam, occasionally you need to let ideas rest, occasionally you need to shift around your priorities, you need to recharge your batteries, that sort of thing. In addition, playing other games can help remind you why you love games. Um, and that sounds kind of harsh. Like, you don't want to hear from game designers that, oh, well, I hate games. I spend so much time working on games that I hate them. But, like any other hobby, I work in IT, and there's a lot of people that I work with who are very much, well, I spend all day in front of a computer. The last thing I want to do when I get home is spend even more time in front of a computer. So all of their hobbies are, away from their machines. Board gaming for me is a big part of that, like being at a table with other people rather than in front of a TV or a video game or a computer, when that's what I do all day, every day, is very appealing. So when you're a game designer, it's somewhat the same thing. Like, designing games is not playing games. Playtesting is not the same as playing games. It's a very different mindset, and it's something that creeps into my everyday playing, which is unfortunate at times. Sometimes it's great to just be able to sit down and enjoy a game, like, for what it is, without critiquing it, or second-guessing it, or trying to dissect it, or, my wife has this amazing story. Her grandfather was a doctor, was a surgeon in Chicago, and her uncles were all also doctors, totally in the business, big time family profession. And they were sitting around at Thanksgiving one day, and her grandfather began illustrating a surgical technique on the turkey for dinner. Um, and at that point, like, everybody who wasn't a doctor was just kind of patently horrified as they talked shop over this bird that they were dissecting. Well, yeah, I guess dissection is the correct word because it was no longer alive, but dissecting on the table in front of them rather than carving up so everybody could start eating. And I kind of feel that way sometimes when I play games, that I play a game and then after the game's over, the first thing myself and the people I've played it with do is pull it apart or, critique it or try to find, things to say about it. Both good and bad, mind you. Like, a critique isn't necessarily negative. There are several critiques where everything you have to say is positive and you're specifically wanting to point out those things, but critiquing is different than enjoying, than just letting go and riding with it. So last night, I didn't release a Vlogust. I didn't record a video or anything last night because I took an impromptu game day. My normal game days are Wednesday nights, and this week my game day was cut extremely short because I ended up working a 14-hour day at work, and so by the time I was actually able to get to the game store, there was only about an hour left for them to be open. So, I showed up and hung out and everything and did play a game, a very short game, but my game night was very, very curtailed. Didn't have time to, playtest any of my own stuff. I did playtest something for somebody else, but the game night, while fun, left me kind of unfulfilled because there was no play. And I've noticed that with a lot of my playtesting sessions. As someone who's really focused on trying to be published and trying to make the best games I can, I spend a lot of my gaming time playtesting games. Specifically my games, and it doesn't bring the same kind of enjoyment as just playing games. It's a different kind of enjoyment. And so last night I just decided, you know what, we're gonna just go play games. And I brought a whole bunch of games that I wanted to play. Didn't end up playing any of those. I ended up playing games that the host provided because we had 5 people and all the games I brought were 4-person games because I wasn't thinking. but we played several different games, and it was really fun, actually. We played Sushi No, which is Sushi Go, except you're trying to score the lowest number of points. And it's amazing how that really flips it on its head. Now, we did it with Sushi Go Party, which is the first time I've ever played Sushi Go Party. So playing it with reverse scoring rules was pretty neat. Like, I shouldn't say that. You don't change the scoring rules. You just change what the win condition is, which changes your entire thought process about every card in the game. You know, cards that are consistently the same number of points suddenly aren't so bad, because while they don't get exponentially better, they also don't get exponentially worse for you. Get cards where you want to get a few, but you don't want to load up because they'll suddenly be worth no points, are now fantastic in Sushi No. You want to grab as many of them as you possibly can. And it's just a totally different mindset, and Sushi Go is such a, like, light, fun game. Even the party version is just such a light, fun game that, I didn't have to do a lot of dissection. I didn't have to do a lot of thinking about it or shop talking about it. I just played it and moved on. Like, there wasn't a long conversation. Like, we had some conversations about how playing it for golf scoring was different than playing it the traditional way, but there wasn't a, you know, long, drawn-out conversation about the mechanics and how they work and the interlocking mechanisms and what was the designer trying to do with this and whether or not we could improve upon it or anything like that. And it was really just kind of freeing to play a game like that. We also played Stockpile, which is one of my favorite games of all time at this point. I think it's in my top 10 favorite games of all time, and I never in a million years would have imagined that a game having anything to do with stocks could creep its way into my top 10. But it has, and it's fantastic. I did a video earlier this month about it, on why I love it, but I just played the game, and it was so fun to just have a game where I wasn't thinking about the mechanisms and how they interlocked, or whether or not this was producing the right kind of result. I just got to ride along with it. It's like when you're watching a movie, or when you're reading a book, and you're not a movie critic or a book critic. Like, you aren't looking to pull anything apart or extrapolate anything from it, or, you know, you're just along for the ride. And it's been a long time, like, since before Origins, that I've really had that experience in gaming. Like, even at the conventions, like, there it's a totally different kind of playing the game. Mostly it's demoing, which demoing is all about showcasing a game and what's important about it and making sure that the people get it. And it's a totally different thing than just being along for the ride. There's an agenda behind it. You know, playtesting has an agenda, demoing has an agenda, pitching has an agenda, but play, there really isn't an agenda. Like, the agenda is to have fun. You can just let go of all of the agendas and just enjoy yourself. And it's an experience that I hadn't had in a long time, and I really missed. And I was so grateful to be able to have that last night. It's one of those things that reminds you why you design games in the first place, why you're interested in it. Like, you know, being a gearhead and being interested in the mechanisms and how they interact and how they work for people or don't work for people, how they create the experience they promise to or not. Both of those things, like, all of that stuff is still wonderful, and I love doing that. And I love playtesting games. Like, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love playtesting games, whether mine or other people's. You can ask anybody I've playtested for. I will give you more feedback than you could ever possibly use. Good, bad, ugly, stuff you should pay attention to, stuff you can ignore. I love helping people playtest games. And sometimes I just want to play games. And it's good to actually get to do that every now and then. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be endeavoring to do now, is make sure that all of my gaming time is not taken up by playtesting of games or designing of games or developing of games, because I deserve to get to play too. You know, right now it is a hobby. It's not a full-time job. I don't have 8 hours a day I can dedicate to it, so I can't spend 8 hours doing design work and then also play afterwards. I have to use the few hours I have for gaming to both work on my own designs and derive enjoyment from a hobby that I love. And so that's what I'm going to endeavor to do. Anyway, just an observation that I had from a regular Saturday evening game night, so I'll leave you with that. Bearded Rogue, out.